Hello guys, how are you doing? Today's video is going to be covering the new spawns for hardpoint on terminal. As you guys know, I did spawn guides of the old patch, but Activision did a clever little update where they completely changed the hardpoints on 4 out of the 5 competitive hardpoint maps. So today we're going to be looking at terminal. For those of you who are new to this sort of series, I'm just going to give you a little bit of an introduction of what each of the things mean, where you can get the info outside of this video, and just general little introductory information. So first things first, the rings on these presentation slides here are where the potential spawn points are, and then the shaded areas are where you can block said spawn points. So for example, this pink ring is a spawn. In order to block the enemy team from spawning in this pink ring, you can be in any one of these pink shaded areas. That, or you can be in the ring itself or have sight of the ring. So you don't always have to be in these specific areas. You can just be looking at the certain spawn point or be in it yourself to block it as well. I do want to also add as a little bit of a disclaimer, this covers 99% of all situations. It won't cover the very few situations in which, you know, very specific things happen in order to make a random spawn. Obviously, there are thousands of spawn points on the map itself, and I can't count up for all of them without giving you guys a headache, and I don't think I could understand that much detail anyway. So this is a guide that will give you the best, best suited for when you drop into MW3 gameplay, when it eventually drops, and this will cover you for most of the scenarios you go find yourself up in. So starting off with P1 on terminal, it's currently in the bookshop. Pink spawns are good because they're really close to the hill. Blue spawns are bad because you've got to run up all the way up Eskers through Hall or pinch around Burger, generally speaking. However, as you can see, P2 is the next hill in the rotation, and that's bottom lounge. So when it gets to the end of P1, so the latter half of P1, you sort of want to flip those spawns and get to these blue spawns for when P2 drops. If in order to block the pink spawns, you have to be in any of these shaded areas, so either in book itself, up this connector side towards the front of the plane, or in security. If pink spawns are blocked, the next available spawn point for the people here is red. So if you find yourself spawning red, be very careful, as it may mean someone has pushed up the plane, especially if you have teammates around P3 or perfume. However, you may also spawn red if your team has a lot of weight towards diner. So say, let's say all 3 of your other teammates are towards this side of the hill where my cursor is, it will commonly spawn you there. However, if you spawn in this red circle and you have teammates over this side of the map towards the bottom half of the map here, 99% of the time it means that an enemy is either pushed up to the front of the plane, they're in book, or they're pushed around this connector side. So just be very careful. Now, if you manage to block this blue spawn by either being in sight of it from the top of the plane here, or being top Eskers generally, that will end up spawning them yellow, which is just further back outside of the lounge. So, blocking yellow and blue will spawn them at pink. So just be very careful that if you've not got any sort of these pink blocks and you push out through this top Eski side, they may spawn behind you. But if you do still have P1 control and you have people still coming off spawn and you end up pushing down Eskers, the next available spawn for them to have is in fact teal. So it can be very weird that you get really close spawns here, so just be very careful that that does happen. Now, if you do find yourself spawning yellow, what does that tell you? That tells you that people are blocking blue and they're pushing from Eskers and or the plane. Now, if you spawn in teal, if you find yourself spawning in teal, it's a really bizarre situation. But you know that you have people pushing you from Eskers and coming from security, because in order to spawn here, enemies need to be in this area as well as this area blocking these pink spawns. So that's a lot of info you can have just from where you spawn. Now, the best thing to do to hold the pink spawns for the Harrz after the hill, as I say, and the best way of flipping spawns for P2 is to run through plane and flank round apron. Running through plane is a nice way to easily block P2 spawns here. And then when you get around to the apron, it blocks both teal and yellow spawns, and it will be the best way to flip them towards pink. So if you're spawning pink, the best way in my head to get to P2 spawns is to wrap around the plane. So let's take a little bit of a quick example of how a plane blocks bottom Eskers on both sides. So you can see here, number 3 is in the hill, which blocks this pink spawn down here in this little comms room. Number 1 is actually blocking the blue spawn, and as a result, number 8 is spawned all the way out security. So this is, as I say, the easy way to flip the spawns for P2 is to have someone in plane. Moving on to P2, we find ourselves the bottom lounge, and the best spawn, the main spawns you're gonna see 90% of the time when playing this hill are pink. I'm gonna get onto this little red circle in a minute, but the pink spawn, which is just bottom of the apron here, or all the way in security at this dark blue spawn. Now, you guys don't need a million IQ to understand what is the better spawn here. Obviously, it's going to be pink. It's so much closer to the hill. Blue, you end up spawning in Narnia, and you've got to run a marathon to get to the hill. So obviously, pink is good, blue is bad. However, as it was similar to the last hill, after halfway or so through P2, you want to aim to flip to the blue spawns because they are better for P3, which you can see is down here now. Now, if the pink is blocked, you will end up spawning yellows. What does that tell you? If you end up spawning yellow, it means that someone from the enemy team has pushed up to the top eskies or the top third area, and as a result has blocked your pink spawn. And you can also block pink from the top of the slide here or top plane, but you will also be blocking yellow from here as well. So if you do spawn yellow, that literally means that they must be top pushing from the top of the eskies or top third, or just that general vicinity. Now, you're going to notice there's a little bit of a teal spawn here, which you might think is the default spawn. It's not, but you can spawn teal if one of three things happen. So you can spawn teal if your team has a heavy weight towards top eskies and you will get squad spawns. So let's say you've just died, but your 3 teammates left up are this general area where my cursor is, you'll spawn there because your teammates are there. Secondly, if you spawn teal and none of your teammates are pushed towards eskies, that generally means the enemies are pushed through plane and they are playing towards P3. So let's say you spawn here, but you don't have teammates already here, anchoring the spawn for you. That means that someone who was spawned in this pink side of push through plane, they're already trying to play P3. Thirdly, you can also spawn teal if someone's blocking this dark blue spawn. So let's say someone from the pink team is pushed all the way up through hall and they're in book, that'll block this dark blue spawn and it will mean that you just then naturally spawn teal. There's also a red spawn. Now, this is probably a very rare occurrence. I've seen this once in all the VODs I've reviewed to do research for these videos. Now, that happens if all other spawns are blocked. So that means if pink's blocked, if yellow's blocked, if teal's blocked, if blue's blocked, you will spawn, ideally, in pink. But this being in this pink zone won't block this red spawn. That's just why I've done it in a different colour. Now, here's a little bit of an example of how this can happen. So I'm sorry for the quality, it's terrible. But number 4 has literally just spawned here. You can see why. So number 7 is blocking yellow. Number 6 is blocking the spawn. Number 6 isn't actually blocking spawn, but number 5 and 8 are the bigger players here. No, so number 8, this blue player here, is actually blocking this back security spawns, and number 5 is blocking this spawn back here. So as well as teal, sorry, number 8 is also blocking the teal spawn. So realistically, if we go back a little bit, there's nowhere they can spawn yellow, there's no way they can spawn teal, and there's no way they can spawn blue. And as a result, number 4 has had to spawn here. So if you find yourself spawning here, that means there's going to be someone on the enemy team pushed out towards security, blocking the teal and dark blue spawns, and there's also someone in plane causing you to not spawn in that yellow area. Now, let's say that guy outside book dies, which is exactly what happens here. So number 4, this is literally taken seconds after that original screenshot I just showed you. Number 4's just come off spawn a little bit here, and his teammates have just spawned in. Number 1 and 2 have literally just spawned in, and they have been able to spawn there because number 8 has just fallen. So the fact that number 8 was playing his life here meant that red was spawning all the way out at the bottom of this apron here, which is ideal, which leads me into my next point. So the best way to break P2 if you're spawning blue is to get out to top eskies early as a squad, using height and then winning gunfights, and it will bully them out through the spawns, and they'll end up spawning yellow. Or, which is my preferred one, this next one, you can push through plane to block both yellow and pink spawns, which will open up the teal spawns for the flip. That's the best way for me. Now, when you want to flip spawns for P3, as I said, when it gets to the latter half of P2, you want to really get these dark blue spawns for P3. The best way you can do that, as we've just seen in the screenshots, is to somehow wangle your way into book. Play through P2, play at top eskies, win your gunfights here, play in book, and that will force the enemy to spawn either behind you or teal. But realistically, they're going to be behind you, because realistically, when you're here, if you push out a little bit here, you can block teal as well. So pushing out book here will block these 2 spawns. And if you've still got control of P2, it will just force them to spawn here. So realistically, that's the best way to flip for P3. Now, talking to P3, it's now outside perfume. Again, pink spawns are good, blue spawns are bad. Pink is simply better because you spawn closer to the hill towards the P3. However, blue is bottom Eskers, and it's a little bit of a route to get to the hill. So again, it's a very similar situation, and it's a little bit better compared to what we saw in the original patch notes, because these security spawns were good for every hill pretty much. But it's nice to see that it's actually flipping now. Now, if someone pushes security side book or around P3, that blocks both yellow and pink spawns. So that's this area here. If you find an enemy person pushing out a book to these sides, that will block both yellow and pink spawns. Now, the only scenario I've seen in which a yellow spawn occurs is when someone is in book and has a line of sight towards pink, but they're not pushed out quite far enough for them to block yellow as well. So if you do want to block both of these spawns, you need to be pushed out a book towards this like plant pot sort of area, and that will make them not be able to. That'll make the enemy team not be able to spawn here. But if you do spawn yellow, just be very careful. That commonly means that someone's in book. So you can see here, number 5 just spawned in here, and even though number 3 isn't pushed quite far out, because if he had pushed far out, number 5 wouldn't spawn there. Number 3 is blocking here. So yeah, if you spawn in this yellow area here where these comms are, it generally means that someone's in book. Now, if the blue is blocked, moving on to the other side of the map, they'll spawn teal. So if you want to push blue out, you can push to the top eskies in this area here, and then blue team will end up spawning out all the way towards teal. Basically that means if you spawn in one of these 2 teal spots, now weirdly it can be in red, bottom red, or at the back of the lounge here. It's very bizarre. But generally speaking, if you're spawned in teal, that tells you that someone on the enemy team has pushed up towards Eski. So if you're running out from here, just be very careful that you may have someone overlooking your spawn. Or if you run out of white or bottom here, just make sure it's someone. You're checking your corners when you run out towards this area, because generally speaking, it means someone is at this area up here. Now, if literally everything is blocked and an enemy isn't top Eskies, red is the final spawn point available. This generally means people are P3, security area, and around the bottom lounge around here. So here's an example. I know it sounds like a very bizarre situation, but here's an example of what happens here. So for whatever reason, number 7 is flanked all the way around to get to these, to maybe kill her. I'm not really sure, but you can see here, number 8 is blocking both these back security spawns and just general spawns back here. These guys, this number 7 is also then blocking both the teal spawn and the blue spawn, and as a result, the only place for these guys to spawn are in this little tiny area here. So number 1, I believe, is literally just spawned in, and he spawned there because you can see the area of the map. They don't have anywhere else to spawn. Now, tactics-wise, if you spawn blue, the best thing you can do is push out a book to block the spawns in this general area here where my cursor is, and then flip them to Eskies, whilst having people push through the front maybe as a distraction. P3, obviously, if you spawn pink, it's really easy to hold P3. You just get the kills and you're pretty much close. But so blue is the hardest one. So yeah, as I said, I would advise having a couple people push through book to block these spawns, and then having a couple people chow front, as a bit of a distraction, so these guys aren't just turning around and beaming people pushing through the bookshop. Now, realistically, flipping late into P3 isn't a bad thing. So let's say, you spawn in blue. You almost want to go for these back spawns through to the very end of the hill, because realistically, P4's in this burger area here, or this dining area. Having these pink spawns for that hill aren't the worst thing in the world. So yeah, that's P3. Moving on to P4. Now, this is a very, very, very basic hill to read spawns on. I have, as I said, watched 6 variants of this hardpoint with different VODs and whatnot, and these are the only 3 spawns I've seen people spawn in that area, so just bear with me here. So, as I say, pink spawns are good. It's pretty much close to the hill, and you don't have to push, and you have the ability, if you spawn pink, to push out these blue spawns to teal even further. Blue spawns are bottom eskies and harder to get to P4 from here, in my humble opinion, so I prefer these pink spawns. So these are the ones I would be playing for. So if pink is blocked, now you can block pink by being in pink, in the pink area here in book, or just generally at these dining tables. If you've blocked pink, they will spawn teal. So even if you are, you've got teammates pushed up these top esky area here, if you enter book whatsoever, you will flip spawns and they'll spawn teal. So just be very careful and communicate to your team that if you are pushing book, watch your back, because people can spawn teal. Now, if you happen to somehow spawn elsewhere on the map, because as I said, I couldn't see any other spawn points when I watched the VODs. So if you spawn in neither one of these circles here, that generally means someone has blocked security, bottom lounge, as well as teal. So that will probably tell you that someone's in security or book, someone's eskies, and then there's someone, as I say, has probably just spawned teal. So if you happen to find yourself spawned somewhere else other than this, that's where the enemy team will be. Now, if you spawn teal and you were spawning pink, what does that tell you? That generally means the enemy have pushed out book. So if you spawn teal and your team was spawning pink, just communicate to your team that there may be someone pinching your P4, because they, in order to spawn here, they have to be pushed through this area here. Now, if you were spawning blue and you find yourself spawning teal, that generally means someone on the enemy team have pushed through P4 and they've pushed out top eskies, and they want you to spawn even further out. So just be very careful that if you're spawning teal and you were spawning this dark blue area here, it means that you're going to pretty much have people looking over the spawn and challenging gunfights here. Now, of course, if they aren't blocking pink, whilst they do that, you'll flip. So if you want to be on that pink side and you want to fight the hill head on, and you want to maintain these spawns, you want to make sure you have someone back here at all times. Now, if you want to flip, now P5 is in this apron area, and trust me when I say this, these back spawns here are far better for P5 than the spawns you're about to see otherwise. What I would do is win the initial gunfights towards P4 or flank through book towards this top eskies area and push through the old hill. Pushing through the old hill will spawn them teal, and you just keep running down like that, because realistically that's what you want. That, or you can rotate through plane, but bear in mind plane doesn't always block the spawns here. It might flip them, but relatively speaking, the most guaranteed way to block these both spawns and have them flip is through here, but you can also do it through plane if you take a little bit of a route. Moving on to P5. Now there's a lot going on here, so you're going to have to bear with me. So P5's this general little area here. It's called B Dom if you play domination, and there are two main spawns. I'm not saying this is where you commonly spawn, but these are the main spawns if nothing else is happening. If nothing else is blocked, these are where you're going to spawn. So pink obviously is the better spawn because you're really close to the hill. However, and that's back lounge. However, blue is in this server room here, and obviously it's a little bit of a route to get to the hill from there. Now, as you can see, pink is a very easily blockable. It can be blocked from top eskies, from top third, in red, in plane, and in short, generally anywhere you can see that area of the map from. So you can see all of these pink highlighted maps. They sort of merge with the yellow here, but you can see these general areas will block this pink spawn. So it's very easy to block pink. Now, if pink is blocked, the next available spawn for your team will be yellow. But as you can also see, yellow is also very easy to block. You can do this from anywhere on the apron. You can do this from anywhere bottom plane. So generally speaking, if you spawn yellow, that tells you that people have pushed up this top side of the map towards eskies or top third, and rather than this side. Because realistically, if an enemy team member has pushed up this connector side or this plane side of the hill, they're also going to be blocking the spawn as well as pink, and in which case you would flip. So chances are people pushing from blue spawns are going to be able to easily block pink spawns and yellow, because realistically if they spawn blue, they're going to run here, they're going to have vision of this yellow spawn, they can see pink spawn from pretty much anywhere as soon as they get to the plane, and they're going to be blocking it. So that's going to block both yellow and pink. So a lot of the kills they get will actually spawn the enemy teal. Now, if you guys have played Terminal Hardpoint since the update, or you've seen clips, you're going to see a lot of parallel spawns here. So I can't emphasize this enough. I mean, most of my VODs had people spawn in here, and then the enemy team was spawning here, and then people were just running out, and just gunfights were happening in this general left-hand side of the map, because these spawns are very common from enemy teams to spawns on. So generally speaking, next time I'm loading into the terminal and I spawn in comms or I spawn in security, I am going to be checking whether or not they're spawning the other one. So if you spawn comms, run out of the hill, fair enough. Run out of your spawn, fair enough. But check your left, check your back as you push up, because chances are the enemy team can be very easy, especially if there's gunfights happening, spawning behind you. Similarly, if you spawn security, you want to make sure that, I mean, realistically, you just spawn blue. So if you spawn security, that pretty much tells you that you guarantee to have someone in this comms room. So just be very careful that if you spawn on either of these, you will probably have spawned very close towards an enemy has spawned, if they're also dying, obviously. So generally speaking, the first team to rotate to the hill generally has control of it. simply because you can defend it from so many line of sights, and even if enemy pressure is applied, your team and their team pretty much spawn in the same place anyway. So rotating to this hill and getting on the time will probably guarantee you most of this hill time. I've seen actually a couple of teams get 50, 60 seconds on this hill because they can literally lie down behind cover, and you can, as long as one of their teammates is staying alive in a power position, they can sort of look over them. Best thing to do to defend this point, in my humble opinion, stop this nasty spawns towards the security, is to have very good control of plane, plus top third. So realistically, if you rotate into P5, don't sit back here, because that's literally just going to block this 2 spawns for the enemy team. So any kills you get or they get in this area here are going to spawn here, and you're going to end up in a really horrible position again, where you're getting parallel spawns and the gunfights are happening nowhere near the hill. So realistically, if you can set up for P5 early, you 100% want this plane control here. But do be aware, if you add this sort of area to the side of the plane, you're probably going to be blocking this dark blue spawn here because of the line of sight, in which case they're going to spawn till. So for me, I would have, if I rotate to P5 first, I'd be plane, top third, on the point, and I'd probably have someone pushed out this hall or something like that, just watching the cut from the spawn. That should be enough to stop the enemy from getting the block spots. But yeah, if you don't have that upwards pressure and you allow the enemy team from blue to get towards these areas here, it's going to be a little bit of a shit show, excuse my language, and you're going to end up with parallel spawns over here, so that's really not advised. So I hope that makes sense. As I say, if you have any questions or you want a copy of the document with the notes I've just spoken about, feel free to join the Discord and it will all be there. But yeah, I'm keen to get the rest out, so make sure you sub if this is something you want to see more of for Karachi Invasion and Sub Base, and I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao for now.